Well, thank you everyone for joining. This is episode 5 of Growing Unicorns. And we have a very special guest today. So Chang Chen, and we have Holly, and we have myself. Eli is still on paternity leave, but let's have some fun without him. So just Chang, if you can just intro yourself, tell us your story, and just tell more, share more with the group about where you've been and what you've been up to.
Yeah, my name is Chang Chen. I'm kind of the head of growth and marketing at a company called Otter.Ai. I am an engineer turned growth marketer. I started my career when I was in college, starting my own e-commerce company. And in the last 15 years, I've been with smaller companies as well as a bigger corporation like Microsoft. I joined Otter 2.5 years ago when the company was only 10 people. And now that we are really able to scale the company from tens of thousands users to more than 10 million users in the last 2.5 years. And we are also seeing tremendous growth in our revenue as well. So I'm super excited to be here today.
Wow. That's such a great growth story. From 10,000 to 10 million, did you say?
Yeah, we definitely have seen really exciting user growth as well as revenue growth.
That's amazing. And 10 people to how many people now?
Currently, we are hiring aggressively. So if someone is interested in new opportunities, we are hiring for engineering, we're hiring for growth marketing, we're hiring for sales as well as product.
That's amazing. I'm super excited to learn more.
Yeah, of course. You want to introduce yourself, Holly and Karina?
Yeah, so I think some of you, we're definitely here the last week or the week before. So welcome back if any of you have been here before. And if not, just a quick intro on myself. So I'm VP of Demand Gen and Growth over at Mattermade. We're a growth marketing agency and we work closely with Holly. So Holly, I'll pass the mic to you and you can quick intro yourself too.
Thanks everyone for joining. It's great to see your faces. I am currently a growth and marketing advisor, primarily work with SaaS companies on their growth and marketing strategy. But recently I took on a new role overseeing sales team as well. So definitely some new challenges and interesting problems to figure out. And yeah, really excited to I think the best part for doing this is to meet and talk shop with just amazing people who's really just creating new ways of doing things. There's really no books written or, there's no set playbook in doing this. So every time I goes away with tons of learnings from our guests and from the conversation. So yeah, we're really looking forward to today.
Amazing. Yeah. And as we move through, if anyone has questions or things that they want to chat about, throw them in the chat and we'll make sure to get you guys on live and we can talk through those. Cool. So I think to start off, Holly, I know just with what you're working on right now, we want to talk through a little bit more marketing and sales. And then I think we can move into self-serve and like how to build out that growth team. So Holly, I'll let you take it away on the marketing and sales front.
Yeah, like I was just asking Chang right before we start, because Otter is such an interesting company, right? It's a very PLG company, just like Zoom. Everyone can sign up, and there's a pretty generous free tier. I think 600 minutes of free minutes that you can transcribe every single month. I know that sometimes I need more of those minutes and I just upgrade to a monthly plan. And sometimes I downgrade into a free plan again when I don't need all those minutes. And this is an individual use case, but there are a lot of companies and businesses needs this kind of service as a more of a core need and hard need. And I would imagine you probably have a large number of individual use cases and end users, as well as the buyers at companies. So I'm super curious to hear from you, Chan. Like, how are you thinking about structuring marketing, like what marketing does, what sales does, when does sales come in, and how do you structure that strategy?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We are to be super honest, that we are still exploring that. We hired our head of sales, and the reason we are thinking about establishing that department is because we are seeing a very strong demand that we have penetrated into many enterprises, and we also have enterprise customers like IBM, like Pfizer. So we are getting a lot of demand, and a lot of it is just how things happen is that we have individual users from those enterprise companies. They started to use a product, and some of them they are even from different departments, and sometimes it's the operation person. They started to notice a different reimbursement for our subscription. Sometimes it's the IT department, and they will reach out to us, and they started to the conversation about an enterprise deal. And when we talk about enterprise deal, it's a very different motion comparing to self-serve. You need to go through the procurement department. They have a different IT requirements. So that's when we really need to that formal sales organization to properly handle those.
When does the sales team?
And yeah, so right now it's it's majority inbound, and we have a really good problem to have. Well, we have a very tiny sales team, but we have very strong demand. That's also why we also started to think about how we can scale them. And so in back to your question, like when the sales team will comes in. So right now it's a majority inbound driven, meaning that we have customers that reaching out to us, and we are also thinking about that how we can start it to be more proactive, reaching out to the potential buyers, and to think about how we use BDR to convert some of the groups of individual users to the team's accounts. Currently, we're still doing preparation, meaning that we are. So our analytics team, they're building segmentation model. They're trying to understand the indicators, and we're also building out lead scoring algorithms, trying to think about what are the best indicators for enterprise deals, and what are the best indicators for us to generate lead for the sales team.
There's so much I want to unpack. Let's start with when. So like people, sign up, they read, like, do you have almost a nurture sequence after people sign up that say, oh, like our sales team is here if you want to contact us? Like when do you offer the option to contact the salesperson?
Yeah, we have segmentation models, meaning that we have very tiny sale. We have a very tiny sales thing, and we have a good problem to have. Well, we have a lot of demand, so we are trying to convert as many of users in a self-serve motion, unless the user profile feeds into the buyer persona, unless the user is coming from some of the bigger enterprises. So we have so you can imagine. When users sign up, so probably just take a step back. For our product, we have a consumer paid plan. We also have business paid plan, and before we have that enterprise plan. So you can imagine when a user first sign up, we first want to understand, is this a business user or this is more an individual user? And we have a segmentation model for that. And after that, within the business user, then we want to further understand, is this a more small and medium company, is it more self-serve, or this user can represent and can represent an enterprise that will actually worth our sales team's time. And with that, then we also have marketing qualification, and we have then then we will send the lead to our sales team, and the sales team, they also have the sales qualification process.
How do you identify the folks? I would imagine probably a lot of people signed up with their personal email address. Do you ask for their title, company, or do you do some sort of data enrichment, or how do you actually identify these people?
Yeah, we have surveys. I think you already covered all of them. Yeah, we have surveys. We have data enrichment, and also we also observe users' behavior. Like if a user they have a group, and they constantly working together with another group of users, then we tend to think that people they're working in groups, and they might have a recurring meetings. It might not have the strict definition for business, but since that they have that recurring meeting, so they have the behaviors like a team, and there are some other indicators in terms of users' behavior, firmographic data, as well as our acquisition sources. So right now that we'll have paid acquisition that determine people's search keywords, and there are some other targeting information from the other channels. So segmentation model currently that we are picking up all the different signals, and we are synthesizing them into the probability of each user's segment. And so the original thinking is that for a lot of individual users, they don't necessarily need all the advanced features. So we don't need to distract them. We don't need to introduce the features that they don't like. So the original thinking of this model is actually just to provide more targeted user onboarding and the user education to provide exactly the things our users need. So the original thinking is more about to provide a better user experience and provide a more personalized user experience.
I'm always interested in like what is the tech stack that supports that generally. And I think that's a question that everyone has, is like, yes, we know we need to do this, but what is like the go-to? So I'm interested to hear what you guys are using over at Otter.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So one of my major focus in 2020 was actually to establish that centralized database. So we have all the different data from third party, from user behavior. So previously they were all sitting in different places. Finally, in 2020, we were able to centralize everything, and we were able to clean up the data. So the data is in a structured way, and it's ready for us to actually to dive in and to start to generate insight and start to think about different algorithms.
In data enrichment, do you use like Clearbit or ZoomInfo or LinkedIn? All of the above?
Yeah. And
Yes, we're talking about the same language. Yes, you said all.
I mean, Holly, what have you?
Is that the same thing that you are using as well?
Yeah, like it's like no data enrichment tool can have, more than 50% of match rate. So it's it's like you almost have to either pick one and just like accept the reality, or get two of them and hopefully there's more coverage.
Yeah, and some of them they are good. They are better with company level enrichment, and some of them they're bigger database for individuals.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. How do you go about like thinking about a lead scoring model?
Yeah, I actually want to hear your thoughts on that. This is something that we are still developing actually. So we have a very simple rule-based model right now, but I do think that that model can be significantly improved. Are there any strong indicators and anything that you're using right now?
It really depends on company and stage company. Like I feel like so for a smaller company, typically the first step I recommend is like, what's your ICP? What's the type of personas or job titles you want to attract? What's the company size? And for certain companies, they have more of a target industry that they want to focus on. So these kind of like firmographic plus like personal information is a combination of like a traditional lead scoring model. And then, product-led growth companies, then product usage is part of that model, and say, hey, if someone has reached a setup moment or even like a habit moment, then that's a product qualified lead. And then you layer on the firmographic information. But sometimes, you don't have a lot of firmographic information. And so just for certain clients, we just go by the product usage data, because that's like, at least we have it for everyone. It's a combination. I feel like you almost have to have something to start with. And then as the data grows, it can become more sophisticated.
Yeah. Yes. Anding that, I think the more you learn about product usage and what certain signals equal higher intent or like higher engagement, longer term, or like longer retention, lifetime value, you start to key in on those and building those back into your like base level model. But it's always just like starting somewhere, and then you layer on, whatever enrichment tools you have or any like product usage information. And then you can start to signal off of like the higher value engagement.
Karina, I'm sure you have built lead scoring or like, MQL, PQL models for lots of your clients. What specific signals have you used in building your models?
Yeah, so it's all the same things that you said in terms of ICP and like firmographic, and then it just depends on the company and the product, right? So typically it's understanding historically, if somebody shares or creates, for a Loom, for example, creates a video, 3 times, typically that's like a good indicator that they're in the product and they have this ICP. So they're, the adoption is there, and then we match them to whatever company. And if there's 3 other people across departments that are using it, so it turns into a big data orchestration. I'm always interested in like what tech stack everyone's using to gather all that data into one place. And then it does turn into an algorithm, right? It's no longer just if you fit this ICP from a firmographic perspective, it's all these other, signals that we're getting from the product. And then also how they engage with marketing and website and all of those things. So I know that there are some people that do that with like Mad Kudu. So interested to hear, John or Holly, if you guys have used any other tech.
Yeah, can we stay on that lead scoring topic for a while? Do you have a different lead scoring algorithm for mid-market and bigger enterprises? Because sometimes they perform very differently, especially for bigger enterprises. They have a different cost center, so so there's no one single buyer. How do you treat that, and how do you have a different lead scoring algorithm for different market?
I haven't typically, in my experience, built that out. Holly, I don't know if you had, but I think it's just weighting it differently, right? Like if you're the individual always going to be the user, never going to be the buyer, you just weight those things differently than if you had the title of, the decision maker that you've established in that org.
Yeah, I think like I've seen companies doing account scoring. Basically, like just like lead scoring, you score on the account level. So like how many people within the same company has signed up or has interacted with the marketing material. And then you add on those scores together as an account to indicate, especially for enterprise companies.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think this is also an interesting segue into just the self-serve marketing funnel and how it is really such a different approach to your typical sales-led marketing funnel, which is, the MQL to SQL, and let's typically always drive to sales. And so what does that look like for just Holly in your experience, or John? like driving people more towards product engagement, right? So when you build your lead scoring model, typically the heftier side of that is going to be product engagement. And so that turns into your marketing funnel, not always to lead them to reach out to sales or to consume content. It's product usage. So I'd love to hear how you guys think about that, or just your experience there.
So for Otter, we were in a very interesting situation where we also have that consumer business. So actually, when I first joined the company in 2018, we were a pure consumer company. So you can imagine the first few years that our folks were mainly focusing on driving user engagement to get the user to start to use the product, and that's still a focus for the whole company. And before we have that segmentation model, before we are able to think about how we can convert user, we still need the user to find the value, still need the user to reach that aha moment. So from that perspective, it's very similar to the traditional consumer company, to really think about how we can properly onboard the user, how we can get the user to reach the aha moment quickly, and how we can increase the engagement, and how we can increase the social effect to help them to invite their friends, to invite their coworkers, and if they started to use the product as a group, then that will also in return to help on the engagement side as well. And by getting people from the same company to all start to use a product, that also will help with the penetration rate, and then that will also help on the conversion for the B2B side. But before we really start to think about that the B2B conversion, majority of our effort is still to think about how we can really bring value to the users, and how we can help people to realize that product value sooner.
Yeah, well, one of the things we're trying now is with the sales team is instead of having the sales team sign their outreach emails of like BDR or something, and just say product specialist, so people are more receptive of contacting us, and like it's almost like offering the person as a support, and the goal for that conversation is really to make sure this person is getting value from the product. And if in the meeting it sounds like there could be a potential deal, then that becomes more of a sales conversation.
Awesome. Yeah, that's so interesting to see how like that transition is happening. I think there's a lot of transition happening, especially as you see these. I'm seeing a lot of like traditionally sales-led, motion, and they want to move to more of a product-led motion. So figuring out how sales can effectively fit into that model. So it's interesting, Holly, that you're getting that experience and owning the sales team. So I love hearing about that.
I have lots of hypotheses. I have not have conclusive results so far. It's very much of a like experimental phase. I'm starting to think probably like maybe our sales team reach out too early, or maybe the wording should be different, or maybe we should just like wait a little bit longer than 2 weeks after people sign up to offer help. So yeah. I wonder how receptive people are, or if they can tell like that it is a BDR, like yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Maybe they should change.
And then how would you balance the automated email versus a real human to give that white glove service? Do you have a different thresholds, or how would you balance those?
Yeah. So honestly, currently the client I'm working with, there's no there's no differentiation. There's like everyone getting the onboarding email, getting nurture. So that's more of a activation process of getting into the habit moment. And then after the first, I believe the first 7 days or the first 14 days, then there's more of a sales driven email that came from a BDR, SDR's email address. But I wonder, my hypothesis is currently we just like reach out to everyone who signed up. When we probably need to be more focused on only the people who reached setup moment or habit moment. At the same time, potentially getting to know more about who these people are in order to have a different strategy. So like once we know a little bit more about where they work, what's the persona, ICP, do they reach our ideal qualification process, then we do a lot more of a high touch, personalized outreach with different industry use cases or like thought leadership, etc. It's very new, but when I think about like the Slack process, initially I would say Slack is very similar to Otter, which is purely inbound. It's like literally there's no sales outreach, and we just wait for people to raise their hand and say, hey, like I need a more secure enterprise plan. Can you draft a contract? So our sales team is like, okay, cool. Like I don't have to do too much of a sale, and like conversion rate is extremely high. And then like at later stage of Slack, there is more of a outreach process, especially for some restricted industries like financial services, healthcare, government services, etc. Even if there could be some interest from them, we still need to have more of a proactive sales outreach. But for those, we still want to warm them up with marketing. So we still try to say, let's target these personas with YouTube videos or with some sort of thought leadership before salespeople reach out to them. So once there is a marketing warm up, the conversion rate is typically higher.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it almost feels like there ends up being two funnels, and one is, more of the coming in through product, and then thinking through more of like an account-based marketing approach of like, okay, we have enough people in product, we have enough of the data to understand, and we've won enough deals or have enough customers to understand who we can win with the fastest. Like, let's marry those two data sets and have more of your typical sales led, like working together to pull those accounts along. And then on the other side of the funnel is, like pulling people through with marketing and making sure we can get them to the aha moment. But I think for me, it's always like, I think we are talking about the after, where like all the data exists and it's segmented and all the tools are running. But I think there's this piece for people who are trying to incorporate that product-led motion and identifying like, how do I get to this, right? Like, how do I get to the segmented model? What are the things that we think through there? And what is the tech stack that I need to support, gathering all of that data and segmenting it. So yeah.
Yeah, another hypothesis what I have is it really depends on how complicated the product is. So for a product like Slack or like even Otter, right? Like it's pretty straightforward to understand. Okay, like you communicate with Slack or like you transcribe with Otter, like on the basic level. Of course, like the product has a lot more sophisticated features that is not like that's beyond the basic foundation. But basic foundation is easier to understand versus certain SaaS products is a little hard to grasp for the average user. Even if the user is like a business user, it may not be that technical or sophisticated, or it needs more hand holding. So for those type of products, there probably needs like an earlier involvement from a human.
Yep. I think it also depends on the cost to serve a free users. So for some product that if the marginal cost to serve an individual free user is actually pretty high, they might not be the economics might not make sense to pivot to the product led. It's only because that the product like that it needs a very big free user base before the whole system can work. But if the cost to support those users are pretty high, then a lot of time the idea actually won't make sense.
Totally.
Yeah. Like, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Holly.
I was gonna ask, like, follow up is Chang, like, what's your theory on what kind of companies are, suitable for a product-led growth model and what companies don't?
Yeah, I think it's the one that you just mentioned. The product need to be intuitive enough, so it doesn't require a customer success manager to help you to set up everything before the users can experience that aha moment. And the support and the cost to support individual free users will need to be low enough to scale. And also, I think depending on the product itself, the product experience will need to be really good. Need to actually solve the end user's pain point, because we are aiming to the end users to start to use the product and to start to advocate within the company. So we really need to be able to solve the pain point of them, to turn them in from users to advocates before the product-led company can penetrate and can expand.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I see companies that want to shift to this product-led motion that have typically been sales-led. And it's generally the answer is like, you're better suited going more of a, like, Holly, we talked about this last week or the week before, like product snack, because the product requires such high touch from just getting into the product. Maybe there's like a data ingestion component that has to happen, where that aha moment can't happen really by the user by itself. And so it requires so much product updates to be able to support that product-led motion. And then from a customer success or like a sales component, bringing those people to the aha moment becomes such a high lift. And so I do think that it's not possible for every company, especially if you've already headed down this more sales-led motion and the product is really complicated. But I think there are ways that you can take that product-led, mindset and provide ways to get into the product that are more of a product snack versus like, full product usage.
Yeah, I really like how you describe it as a mindset, meaning that I do see successful examples. Well, people use that product-led the product-led mindset to help the engagement, to help the activation. Because even for a sales-led company, that after they sign the contract, they will still need to think about how to get the end user to start to use the product, so that they can upsell, and so that they can then make sure that today the contract will be renewed. So I do see successful examples. Well, the sales-led companies, they use that product-led mindset to continue to improve the product, to address the end user's pain point, and to really succeed in engagement, in activation, and in renew.
What are some common mistakes or pitfalls that you try to avoid when working with your sales team?
I think the biggest learning is just to maintain a really transparent communication. Because we do need the feedbacks from the sales team, from the sales qualification process to help us to continue to improve the lead scoring, to help us to continue to think about how we can better provide better leads. So it's a really interesting balance, meaning that we don't want to send too many leads to the sales team because some of them they might be lower quality that actually waste our sales team time. At the same time, we also don't want to only send super high quality leads because there are some deals that if they go through the self-serve path, then their revenue might be lower if we provide them wide glove services. So that's still a balance that we're trying to find. But that's a team spot, meaning that it cannot be achieved only by the marketing team. It cannot be achieved only by the sales team. You need the two teams to work together to constantly to share feedback and to continue to improve the process from both sides together. So that's why I'm really interested to see that in your new organization that the sales team and the growth marketing team that actually are reporting to the same executive.
Yeah.
I think that'd be super beneficial. That might be the new trend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that the collaboration becomes a lot more close in product-led growth companies between sales and marketing, which potentially could be like more companies started to think this way, like more from a overall revenue or overall growth perspective. How do we connect the dots?
Yeah. We were talking about this last week too, and I think we will start to see that more. And then also just down to like whatever KPI those two orgs are responsible for, like there will be more overlap than generally exists today. Holly, how is it built out right now where you are? Is it like a shared KPI or are they two kind of different initiatives?
Right now, it's still being defined. Right now it's separate, but I'm thinking about changing that.
Just out of curiosity, what are the two separates?
Yeah, so marketing is actually like the main North Star is reaching a certain number of setup orgs. Yeah, so like marketing right now aligns a lot closer with product team. And really think about like from sign up to setup moment. And sales org is almost like a separate thing. People think about, let's set up X number of meetings with customers, with people who signed up, and let's get X number of new orgs or new logos, which is a very separate from the marketing and product org. I think potentially we want to align everyone to some sort of like PQL goal. Of course, sales team always should have an ARR goal, but like maybe the connection point is the PQL goal.
Yeah.
One follow-up question: Where do customer success sit? Is it below sales team, or do you think it's a separate in addition to the sales work?
Yeah, and typically what I've seen is they sit as part of sales org. Yeah, at Slack, customer success report into the SVP of sales. In this org, they also basically half of a salesperson's job is customer success. It's a really small team. But I'm thinking potentially having like a dedicated customer success person. Because like I feel for product-led growth companies, customer success and customer support actually is really, really critical for the success of the business. Oh yeah, so so there's also customer support, which is typically solving technical issues and like the support tickets and stuff. At Slack, there's actually a separate org for customer support / we call it customer experience. That's separate from the sales org. And I've seen companies having one leader, a sales leader that manages both customer success and customer support.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that, and this kind of segues into what I know we were hoping to talk about and just like how to build growth teams or like what growth teams look like. No, this is a perfect segue. Like we see the rise of the CRO, which is kind of like that person who sits over sales and marketing. Like, what is that going to transfer into in terms of this? Yeah, like it totally makes sense to have this unification of product marketing and sales and having those KPIs be overlapping in shape or form. So interested to hear, Holly and Sean, like how you guys think about growth teams and like those, how to that who really should support and any KPIs that we can mention.
I would love to hear from Chang.
That's something that I'm actually thinking about as well. So for the growth team, marketing, sales team, product team, as well as engineering team, especially the product-led companies, that we work very closely together. And there are currently two paths. One is that we have a dedicated team that they have a very strict reporting structure. That team will likely need design, need the PM, need engineering, sometimes need support as well, to really think about how we can improve the product flow, how we can continue to experiment, and how we can think about different user funnels. Another path is it's more like squads. Meaning that it's a guild. It's more like a guild of people. It's a group of people that they will form based on projects. They can have a different reporting department, but when we kick off the projects, then they will formally form a team. So in that sense, that we will have people, it's a more loosely defined structure that they will meet every week. That will be focusing on the project, and they will discussing the project progress. And after we successfully complete the projects, and then we can discuss new projects, and there will be new organization formed. There are pros and cons for each one of them. I'm really curious to hear your experience on which one do you prefer, and do you have any experience with either one of them?
So the squad is a more formal pod, and then the guild is more informal project based.
Yeah, so one is more a very strict reporting structure, that we have a team that have a different people from different backgrounds. The other one is that they all have a different reporting structure, like the PM we're reporting to the product, and the designer we're reporting to the design team. But when we have a project, then everyone will form a project-based squad.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear, Karina, what you've seen at your clients. Like most often, I see the former actually. But the former, that's mostly under product, like almost like a growth org. The growth org is primarily has a growth product manager, but also like a growth design, growth engineering, but they all belong to the growth org. And sometimes there's like a growth marketing or / lifecycle marketing person who supports this squad. But I have also seen more of a project-based. So it's like, okay, like this quarter, we're going to improve Happy Moment. And then a few people got selected to really tackle this as a focus for like on a quarterly basis. I've seen that as well.
Yeah, I haven't seen necessarily like the project base, but I see more of like those growth orgs where they're rolling up to a head of growth, and it's much more of like those actual growth experiments. You have the growth engineer, and you have like dev support or design support, and then you have like a lifecycle marketing manager, and they're really running like it's solely focused on experimentation. And I think that's great because everyone's running towards the same end goal, is to make that like funnel more successful. But sometimes it's also, I mean, it comes down to every function that's separate. The communication doesn't happen. So if you have like a growth org and then you have a marketing org, they're so interrelated. And even though they have two separate goals, like if those aren't, that communication or that collaboration doesn't happen, there's a lot there's a lot that's left on the table. Yeah. All right. We have a question from Peggy. Where does the product marketing sit in your marketing orgs and what their role is in product-led motion? So in my experience, I'll go first. I don't really see product marketing support the product-led motion as frequently, at least in my experience, because I typically see like that growth org that has, they're running mostly experiments. Product marketing is usually supporting more of like the sales-led motion in my experience. But that's just my experience. Holly, John, interested in hearing yours.
We are hiring for our first the head of product marketing. The reason we feel like that there's a need is that the growth work is really experienced in terms of optimize existing things. Even though we sometimes will think about how we can launch a new user flow, how we can personalize a different user flow, but those are all based on the existing product features. While we continue to innovate our product, we're adding new features, and we are thinking about how we can go to market with those new features. So this product marketing person will be more support to take a new feature, to think about how we can record the beta users and to get the feedback and to more taking the new feature from 0 to 1. Well, after we launch the product, we launch a new feature. Then the growth team can come in and think about how can we continue to improve the flow? How can we continue to experiment to increase the adoption rate for that new feature? So that's why we are thinking about, hey, we do have that need, but that's why we'll start hiring.
Yeah, it really depends on the maturity of the org as well. I've seen more mature orgs or mature products. Product marketing supports more of a product launch and sales enablement. And then for early stage orgs, product marketing will write ad copy sometimes. Yeah. Right? Because no one else is like writing ad copy. Product marketing sometimes, manages content marketing as well, and giving directions on what messaging and actually, managing SEO agency. That also happens in certain orgs. It also depends on the skill set of the PM. Have they done it before? Are they more specialized, more generalist? But yeah, that's the beauty of working at an earlier stage company as a PMM, is like you get to work on lots of things.
Yeah.